As we welcome in the director of everything from Elite Prospects, our buddy Cam Robinson. He is off to the Frozen Four in Las Vegas later this week. We'll chit-chat about that with him next week. But we're going to talk some college free agents here. But first, got to start with some of these Quinn Hughes quotes from the Athletics, Cam, because I don't want to say he didn't pull any punches, because there were a couple of areas there where he didn't get into the most detail, but he got into more detail than I suspect he would. And sounds like he's a big JT Miller guy, or was a big JT Miller guy. Your thoughts on what we heard from the ex-Canucks captain?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I thought he spoke a little more frankly than I would have expected. I was hanging out with Drance a couple days before that, and I know he was going to Minnesota, and he was hoping to get a one-on-one with Quinn. He figured he was likely, but didn't know how much he would give him, and he certainly gave him a lot of meat to work with there. I think as a player, when you have someone who is, a leader for you and is putting up the type of points that JT Miller was and the type of role that he was playing when he was at his peak powers there in Vancouver, that it's like, obviously he was a highly impactful player and someone that you want to try to win with. When you go back a couple of years when that team looked like they were on a steady rise and looked like they could have really made some noise moving forward. And then the wheels came off. And then obviously, Quinn's mentioning like, and then, he's gone the next year. And then, all these guys you mentioned that it's just hard to replace when everybody's moving out the door, and didn't really point fingers at anybody about why it didn't work. But if you were kind of reading between the lines there was, one player he didn't mention as kind of being a part of that issue. And I think that we could look at that as that, the rift between JT and Pettersson there. It seems like Quinn was maybe leaning towards the JT side.
It's fine to have a storyline where that was impactful. It just sounded too grave for my liking from Quinn in that, this is a player that was very clearly diminishing as a player too, in JT Miller. And, the trade made sense for the club on more than just the emotional level. And I'm surprised that Quinn was going to acknowledge that meant as much as it did. And that he wasn't able to position himself as a leader that could overcome something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I also think this is an apt time to point out that not all players would make good managers. Not everybody is looking at the big picture, looking long term, because like you said, when you take into the contract and you take a look at the diminishing returns on the player itself at his age, it made a lot of sense, right? There was a lot of things stacked up for the reason why to trade JT. But not everybody in a dressing room is going to look at it like that. They're going to look at it like, hey, we're a team that just about pushed through in the second round of a playoff a couple years ago. We have this player who's super impactful right now. He's about to be an Olympian, blah blah blah. We need that player. We need that player to win because guys want to win right now. Not too many guys are looking at a team and being like, we need to rebuild so that in 5 years we can get, have a couple first overall picks and really push that. Not many guys are looking like that. So for him to have that kind of nearsighted, short-sighted viewpoint doesn't shock me, because I think that's going to be more common than we think
just in case there were any doubters left about the enormity of the fractures in the room. I mean, him calling it all this nonsense and several references, that needs to be put to bed, doesn't it? We've heard the managers,
he was already put to bed.
I would guess.
Gosh,
but
how dim a bulb do you have to be if that is just now resonating with you? A lot of Canucks fans are saying, Cam, that they regret the choice of Quinn as captain when they read through this. What did you make? Like, he's a captain. He had agency. What do you think?
It was, as soon as he left, and then, with USA winning gold and then going to the White House and all these things, it's like, it was going to open him up to a lot of criticism, I think. And then, in an opportunity like this to kind of reflect on his time in Vancouver and to speak on it, not as like, hey, I was the captain, I was the leader. It was on me to make things right or to bring the group together and kind of help that fracture. Again, just opens himself to more criticism. At the same time, do I think Quinn was a bad choice to be captain? No, I don't. I think that, and at the time I said I liked the choice, right? Like, he was a quiet player. He was an elite player. He was someone who would lead by example. And he talked about that in the article as well, too, is that, 30 minutes in Vancouver, a lot harder than 30 minutes in Minnesota, or a lot harder than 30 minutes playing for Team USA, because he felt he needed to do everything. And, maybe that was too taxing on him as a player, and maybe that contributed to him being like, you know what, this isn't where I want to be long term, especially with where the club's going. But it also, I think, is reflective of how he was as a leader, and it was, I'm going to go and do everything I can do possible on the ice to try to drag us forward. But you could tell by his personality, and you know this being around players, both of you, is that not everyone's going to be a rah guy, right? You look at, I had a chat with Scotty Walker there just the other day, and he was talking about Trevor Linden was the greatest leader he ever worked with. Rod Brindamore was someone that you would just watch and you'd be like, try to emulate, because everything he did was just like, I'm going to prove it by how I play and how I train, where Trevor was going to do that, but he was also going to be the guy who's going to uplift you and bring you apart. And that was never going to be Quinn's personality in the room. So do I think he was a perfect choice? No, but I think he was the best choice that was available at the time.
Well, before we leave this topic, let's just get to the elephant in the room here, because as you mentioned, he did not mention Elias by name when he also talked about JT's success. He talked about how he got there without cheating all the time. Is Elias Pettersson at the root of everything that's gone wrong with the Vancouver Canucks?
No, he's not. He's not at the root of everything that's gone wrong with the Canucks. And obviously he's played a significant role simply because of the talent that he is, the contract that he has, and the production that he's been able to put on the board these last couple of years. That just makes him the eye of the storm. But do I think that he is at the root cause of all that has gone wrong in Vancouver in the last 2 years? No. And we've talked about this before, is that I've mentioned that the fish rots at the head, is that it starts at the very top. It starts at ownership. It trickles down to management. It trickles down to the coaching staff. It trickles down to the players. At the end of the day, the players obviously are the ones that are on the ice and doing the job. And so the buck kind of ends there. And when you're the highest paid player on the team and you're supposed to be the most productive, and instead of being that, you're also, causing issues off ice and distractions in the room, that's going to only shine that spotlight on you further. So he certainly should carry a lot of that burden, but I'm not going to say that he is the root cause of everything that's wrong with the organization.
Let's get to the current edition of the team, who continued to lose. They continued to score some goals, however, as well. And we saw them get continued contribution from the young blue liners. Tom Wielander is now at 20 points on the season. Bouillon is not too far behind him, and the two, in terms of a Canuck jersey production, and the two of them are in the top 5 for rookie defenseman scoring. Is that a silver lining to the end of this season here for the Canucks?
Absolutely. Too bad they don't have the golden rule set up for draft picks too, hey? Because they're eliminated first, and now they're scoring some goals. Maybe they could win some games and have some fun down in the end of the season. And
they win games at this time of year, Cam. This is their time to shine after a mathematical elimination. They do it every year. They win games in April.
They do, and usually it sewers their draft slot, but not this year. Locked in at 32. So go ahead and win as many games as you want, boys. Go have some fun. Go put some points on the board. Absolutely, I do think that Bouillon and Tom Wielander, those are bright spots that you want to lean into. Liam Ugrin, obviously Marco Rossi. Like, there are some things that fans can still tune in to watch and look for bright moments, because now we're looking at the future, right? Like, obviously it's been the whole season looking towards the future, but now it's you've got your 25% chance at the top. You're not falling below 3rd overall in this class. Focus on the draft class, focus on the young players. Tom, the 20 points is nothing to sneeze at, especially on a team that doesn't score that many goals, right? In the situation that he's been placed in. He's had some minutes against some elite opposition. I had someone actually, perfect timing, feed me some information, some kind of behind the scenes team analytics that showed his expected goals for while playing against elite competition has hovered right around 50, which is pretty darn good. A lot higher than a guy like DPD has been doing. And we saw him, get the healthy scratch there too. So it's promising for Wielander. I do think that we need to look at him as like, what's he going to be long-term? Because he doesn't have kind of that one elite tool that you would be like, there's top pair potential here. I think he's just going to kind of masquerade as a do everything in your top 4. He can help out offensively. He can help out defensively. He can make a first pass. He can handle it a little bit, but there's nothing really that pops in his game. Yeah. Whereas a guy like Bouillon has those tools that can really pop.
Does the skating not pop on Wielander?
He's just smooth
skating.
skater.
I thought the skating kind of pops. I mean, at least it's aesthetically pleasing at the very least.
It's gorgeous, right? It is absolutely. It's a function and form. Like, it is very, very pretty for sure. I don't think he's an electric mover. I don't think that he uses his feet to create advantages and mismatches enough. Hopefully he grows into that. He's more he's smooth rather than quick or darting or dynamic.
Okay.
Where Bouillon, I think, has that ability to make guys miss with his shiftiness. But I would absolutely agree that skating is Nylander's best asset.
Marcus Pettersson is showing some signs here, better of late. Is he salvageable, Cam?
Salvageable for the team or salvageable as a trade asset?
Well, salvageable in terms of getting back to being a second paired defenseman, or at least not being part of the problem here in Vancouver.
I think so. He turns 30, this summer or something. He's still 29. I do think so. And, the advanced analytics actually showed that his numbers aren't bad this year, both on offensively and defensively. And I think that there's some teams out there that would be interested in taking this player on if he was made available. Not sure you're going to get the exact number that you got back, that you traded away for to in the return. But I think you could move him if you wanted to at the summer at the draft, or you could bring him back next year and hopefully he has a little bit better of a time. And then you look to move him. And if you want him to be a piece of this team long term, then I do think that there's upside there for growth as well, and to return to being like a legitimate second pair defenseman who has some veteran leadership and can kind of do things at both ends of the ice. So I do think he's salvageable. I've said it before, though. I think that basically if you're over the age of 23, 24 on this team, that you should be looked at as an absolute trade chip. And they should be looking to move out as many of those as they can. And then if you need to bring in new guys to support your players on the cheap as UFAs, go ahead and do that.
You do need some veterans on the blue line around. As we've seen with all these young blue liners around, it's pretty nice to have old guy, young guy as parents, right? Rather than trust two kids together.
Oh, without question, you want someone who can show them the way for sure. Yes. You don't necessarily have to trade first rounders and pay the guy $5+ million a year to do that, though.
No, that's true.
So that's where where it's like if you want to move off it, like obviously it's been reported well that they have no interest in moving Phil Peronic, so obviously he's going to be there as a piece long term. And then, but do you need two of those guys that are making more than $5 million, or do you move a guy like Marcus Pettersson and then just go sign a veteran for $2 or $3 million who can bring someone along and help out? Maybe they're not going to have the same impact on the ice, but they might have the same or better impact in the room and as a leader or something like that too.
A couple more games for Ty Mueller this season. Is there anything there? I mean, is he a Teddy Bluger? Are they grooming him into a new Teddy Bluger? What do you think?
I think that's absolutely how they hope that it'll go, that they envision him for him. He's on the way to being a real success story, drafted as a 20-year-old in the mid rounds, right? Like those guys, yes, when you draft someone 20, they're a little closer to the finished product. And so you get a better look at what you might be welcoming in, but still it's hard to find those guys. It's hard to find players in the mid rounds anyway. So the fact that he's, Abbotsford's MVP this year, centered their top line for stretches, big faceoff guy, killed penalties, played on their power play, like did all those things, led the team in goals, I believe. So he did a lot of good things on a not great team down in Abbey. And then to come up and get, a cup of coffee here down the break, it's good for him. Do I think he's long-term going to be a full-time NHLer? I think the jury's still out there. I think that there is a chance that could happen for him, and he could become a Teddy Bluger light player down the middle that can be defensively responsible and kill penalties and take faceoffs and do all those things and generate 15, 20 points a season for you. And I think that obviously that would be a huge win if that's how it turned out. But even if he's kind of one of those quad A guys who plays a big role for your minor league team and can come up and fill gaps, I think that's still a win.
We started with one Hughes. I want to get to another here, Cam. You were the guy who mentioned to us some weeks ago, TJ Hughes at Michigan, the rare college free agent that may actually have NHL skill, might be a part of an NHL scoring group. Needless to say, they play this weekend in the Frozen Four. What's the latest? What are you hearing? Because it seems like the Canucks are interested. I imagine others are as well. But what's your sense of where this file's going to go?
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what TJ decides to do here because, like you said, he's going to have loads of options. He's been my pick for the Hobie for a while now. I think he checks all the boxes. He's probably going to end up leading the nation in scoring here, especially if Michigan can take care of business against Denver in their matchup in the semis on Thursday. I think Vancouver's in on it. I think they've been in on it for a while among a couple other Canadian teams, and then among a couple of a whole bunch of big name teams as well too in the States. So he has a decision to make. Do you take a team like Vancouver that will be like, hey, we'll sign you and we will get you into games right away and we'll burn that year of ELC, right? We'll use you right now. And so because of his age, it's a 1-year deal, right? 1-year ELC. And then if they burn that, boom, he's automatically an RFA. And now they can pay him a lot more, right? Versus the caps that are on those entry-level deals. So you can take that route. But that's going to get him a couple of games, maybe. Maybe it's going to get him a couple of NHL games, and now it's the summer. Or he could look at a team, like Dallas, like Colorado, someone like that has, especially a team like Colorado that has few prospects in their system, but they don't have a spot for him right now. So it's like, okay, you go to the American League, and now not only do you get the rest of the season in the American League, but now you get a playoff run there too. You don't burn the deal. Next year, you come in as one of their top prospects and you have a full year before you're an RFA. You have more opportunities. You're in a better organization. You have that whole summer to train after getting 20 extra games of pro experience to get you ready for the next season. But you probably leave a little bit of money on the table because you're waiting an extra year to get that RFA deal. So it's really I'm really curious to see which path he chooses here. But I do think that Vancouver has been hot on him for a while now. And I think that they'll put together a decent package and the best that they can offer. And I'm sure that'll include burning that year and going RFA right away.
And are you of any mind that he could be a top line player, or is this a middle six player?
Yeah, no, not a top line player. No, he's a good player. He's a smart player. He's a crafty player. I think there's a lot of things that in his toolbox that says like, hey, he can play NHL minutes, and maybe he could fill in on a team like Vancouver in the top 6 or top 9. Do I think he's a legitimate top 6 guy here long term? Like again, like it's difficult to do, and he's he's 25 years old. He's a finished product already. But he is a skilled player too, and he plays well with skilled players, as we've seen that with Michael Hage and all those guys at Michigan. So there's a chance that he could put up some points, but I'm not looking at him to be like a 60-point guy or something like that.
Lastly, Cam, we're doing this every week, but taking a look at a prospect that may fit that second Vancouver first-round pick, the Minnesota Wild Indigenous selection. Last week we looked at Swedish centerman Alexander Command. This week, who are you looking at?
Why don't we stick around in Sweden? Why don't we hang around in Sweden and go to the blue line this time? Okay, I want to talk about Malte Gustafsson. Now, there's definitely a world where he isn't around when this pick kicks off. That there are some teams, and there are some people in EP here too that are chomping at the bit to say that this is the top Euro defenseman in the class. And remember, we've got an Albert Smits hanging around there too. So 6'4", left-handed defenseman, very young for this class. He's played, over half his season, 2/3 of his season in the SHL this year. Started the year out with a strong Holinka, over a point per game there. So really aggressive rush defender. I think I'll stack his rush defense up against, almost anybody in this class. So he's really advanced at that. He's physical. He's rangy. The skating is at least average, probably call it above average. And he has really high upside. Like the flashes offensively, I think are there. Maybe even higher than a guy like Albert Smits, who kind of has a more physical presence. So I think that there's still warts in his game, or else he would be kind of one of these guys that's right in there with Carls and Smits and stuff. His retrieval game is dicey at the SHL level right now. He reminds me of like Simon Edvinsson though. Now playing for Detroit, right? So that big, toolsy, rangy, skates well, can do a lot of good on the defensive side of things, and then can still make a first pass and can still make things happen offensively. So Malte Gustafsson, he's going to be higher on my board. He'll probably be higher on the EP board than this pick will indicate, but I do think that there's a world that he's hanging around kind of in the late teens, early 20s, and I think it'd be a terrific pick for Vancouver.
Yeah, I was impressed by him and William Hankinson, the other big, tall, rangy Swedish left shot defenseman on their World Junior team this year. And the other thing we should point out about Gustafsson, you say one of the younger players in the class, he will not turn 18 until about 2 weeks before the entry draft. So yes, quite late. He played the entirety of this season at 17 years old. Well, we got many more weeks of this, Cam, and certainly counting down less than a month away until the NHL Draft Lottery, buddy. We'll be looking forward to that. Thank you for this. Safe travels to Vegas. We'll catch up next week.
Sounds good, boys. Talk soon.